So we are in my villain arc, my gaming villain arc, and based on yesterday's visceral response, or the visceral responses from yesterday, I want to talk about console gaming. I made a statement yesterday that PC gaming and gaming on the Steam Deck has been a really huge, awesome experience for me. I am someone who is playing on a high-end PC, and I had made comments in the past about how gaming, I was a enthusiast with a casuals amount of time, and someone brought that up and they're like, seems like you've changed, bro. And ever since you decided to start doing your job more, it seems like you've changed. And I was like, what an interesting thing. And I had some self-reflection, like, am I stuck in an echo chamber? Am I only kind of taking in my own personal experience? Am I just talking about my own thing? In yesterday's video, I pretty much think I was talking about my own personal experience. It may have been misunderstood as potentially giving advice, which don't listen to anybody on the internet. It's not worth it. I mean, it certainly did to one guy who, good luck finding his comment. He said, next time you want to talk about something, shut up and only talk about games. We don't care about your life. I was like, aggressive, real aggressive. People get real intense on the internet, like really intense. I don't need to use this right now. I'm also trying a new thing. I'm trying to both do up and down using both my standing desk and the seated situation, because when I was sitting down, I had comments saying, I miss the old way of when you used to stand and talk. And then when I was standing up yesterday, like, it feels like you're trying to sell us something. It's just like, dude, I think I'm at the point in my internet journey where I've just gained enough eyeballs to where I have enough people who are either A, telling me what to do, or B, telling me what not to do. And they seem to be doing it all at the same time. Whew, man, what a juggle mentally to deal with all that kind of stuff. But I want to talk villainously. I think that console gaming is for the hardcore gamer, in that the enthusiast actually plays on console and not on PC. Oh, yeah, there's the controversial statement. Of course, I'm not speaking definitively, because nothing is definitive. The only definitive thing is that I think that playing video games is a lot of fun, and I think that, you know, if more people focused on playing video games and not on where it gets released and what console you're on, you might have a little bit less angst in your heart. But that's kind of the only definitive statement I'm going to say. Yesterday, I made the statement about I don't understand why people are so mad about Xbox, and it seems like people who are on Xbox are pissed that their games are going over to PlayStation, and people seem like they're like, well, Xbox has abandoned their player base by giving PlayStation the games. And I'm like, I don't know if that's necessarily fully true. I think maybe they have made it to where if they made you feel like a Xbox was necessary, it's not. But then, I mean, people who hate PlayStation wouldn't have bought a PlayStation anyway, so it like doesn't really matter all that much. But I think that the enthusiast actually finds themselves on the console more than it might be stated, and that's something that I was thinking a lot about. Like, when I was playing video games on console, I would definitely be considered the enthusiast. And the reason for that isn't because of the amount of time that I'm spending on a device, because I think that when you are playing video games is a weird thing. Because at first, it would be considered a hobby, right? It's considered a thing that you do to pass time, right? Which I would consider it one of two things. Gaming can be a hobby, but I think it's also very much so a pastime. And pastimes and hobbies aren't mutually exclusive. Just because you decide to pass your time on a specific thing doesn't mean that you are necessarily making that thing a hobby of yours. I consider a hobby something where you dive deeper, where you learn more about stuff, and you really try to spend mental energy experiencing that thing. I like to play, or not playing is not a good example, but I like to work out. Is working out a hobby? At one point, it very much so was a hobby. I was spending a tremendous amount of time researching different things about working out. I was trying to figure out what the best workout stuff was. It was my job. I was getting paid to do it. I spent every waking hour doing it, like exercise and CrossFit and weightlifting, and all that stuff was a hobby. Now it's something I do as a daily activity to keep myself healthy so that I can be present with my family, be able to work long hours, and my body cannot be destroyed from everything that I've been doing. That is the reason why I decide to work out. It's no longer a hobby of mine. I don't spend additional time. I spend my, 45 minutes to an hour and a half each day, depending on if I'm working out once or twice. And that's it. That's pretty much it. No longer a hobby. But with gaming, I feel like it's weird because people who like to game end up treating it as if it was a hobby, but really it is something that is just an activity that is done. The enthusiast and the hardcore player and the hobbyist actually are the ones who I believe are in the same boat together. And maybe this idea of console and PC casual versus enthusiast may have been just really misconstrued. First thing I want to say is I think that the conversation as a whole is kind of silly, even though I'm having it. We're going to go 3, green. But the reason why I'm having it is because I think that we're in a weird there's a weird transition happening with gaming, right? There's people that, let's go back. Historically, gaming has been console versus PC. And then once we ditched that, we started going with this platform kind of based gaming, right? What platform are you using? Are you using Nintendo? Are you using Xbox? You're on PlayStation, right? That was another thing that ended up becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And maybe they were reversed, right? Console versus PC came after the platform wars. Then things kept going and going, and now we're finding ourselves in a space where console versus PC and which console you get actually are kind of irrelevant. But people being people want to still argue about certain aspects of it. And that's totally fair, right? Wars need to happen. And so this idea of casual versus enthusiast is now a thing that I introduced to myself. I'm not saying I introduced it to this conversation. I think that I'm simply just a discoverer. I'm not an introducer. And I discovered it's a better way to put it. And in discovering this, I was like, ooh, this is a really good delineation between two styles of gaming. And it's like, no, it's freaking stupid. This is not what it is either. Really what it comes down to is hobby versus activity. Like that is what it is. And when I made this statement about console is for the enthusiast and the hardcore gamer, if we're going to go hobby versus, activity, if we're looking at just like a super like broad strokes here, I mean, when you think about it, you think about someone who has a computer and is playing games on it from time to time, probably an activityist. Why is the AeroPress so good? Again, I don't know if I'm going to do this way every single time. This is way more complicated. My room's very small and I have to literally put away and take out a bunch of gear. If the production value is helpful for you guys, awesome. If you're like, no, dude, we do not care, then I don't know. Sitting in the chair is actually kind of nice. I'm not going to lie. Feels kind of good. I do understand what someone was saying. They're like, it feels more like a podcast when you're chilling in the chair. I get it. It does feel good. It feels nice. I'll tell you, sitting for as long as I do over on streams, twitch.tv/JDXCoffee, 5 a.m. Monday through Thursday. It's tough. It's terrible on the body. I tell you, sitting for that long, I don't know how people do it at desk jobs. It must destroy your bodies. I don't get it. Sitting for that long. I've been fortunate enough to work most of my professional life up until this point in coffee shops and in CrossFit gyms, standing for 8 to 10 hours a day, and the Apple Store. All standing, no seated jobs. I had one seated job for 6 months. I gained 20 pounds. Office jobs make you fat, dude. I don't understand what it is. Back to the gaming thing. with hobbies are things that you put money aside for. They're things you put time aside for. And the accusation online that I received from one person in the, very, very big grand scheme of things, it's just one person. But the unfortunate things with comments is you can have 10 good ones. The one bad one is going to make you feel bad. And so the conversation they had was basically telling me that I used to be this one, and now that I have all this time, I no longer relate to anybody. And I'm like, yeah, I could see how that looks. And I think that as someone who is wants to practice what I preach, I feel like when it comes to perception, we are in charge of how we are perceived to the best of our ability. I'm a hobbyist. Gaming is a hobby to me. What is gaming as a hobby? What does that look like? Gaming as a hobby is I have 10 different ways to play video games. I have a PC, I have a Nintendo Switch, a PlayStation 5 still. Don't have an Xbox because Xboxes have become completely irrelevant. Yes, I said it. Villain Arc activated. I mean, their own commercial, their own ad spot said this is an Xbox. It was a phone, a TV, a refrigerator, freaking shoes, and maybe your toothbrush. Literally, they're trying to say that anything is an Xbox. So if you are someone who has purchased an Xbox Series S and Series X, and you're frustrated because you're like, I could have just been playing this on my phone the whole time, I can see where the frustration may lie. But being frustrated because Indiana Jones is going to be on the PlayStation 5 in the springtime is a misallocated upset. That's silly. That's silly. Yes, I'm saying it. I am saying you're silly if you think that. It is silly if you're pissed because games are going elsewhere. But it's not silly if you feel like, why am I getting hardware that is being reduced to a Android device with a Razer Kiwi? I don't know what they call it. Yeah, Logitech G Cloud, Asus ROG Ally X. Why am I buying this thing if I can just get that instead? I totally understand the frustration there. Xbox or Microsoft as a whole, which is something that I would like to toot my own horn. I saw this coming. The reason why I stopped covering Xbox stuff is because I saw that Microsoft was going to be like, hey, we really just want you to play our games anywhere you want to play them. They said it. Literally, they said it. They said, play anywhere. PlayStation is somewhere. Okay? Just throwing it out there. It's not that surprising that Microsoft is going, well, we're not really making as many games as we thought we would, so let's put them everywhere. I understand folks that are on Xbox only, but hey, you've been on Xbox for a while. It's fine. It's cool. Maybe the next purchase is not an Xbox. Maybe it's a PC because you can play all your games over there. Maybe it's a PlayStation because you want to try God of War. But if you have a PC, you can play both. So, back to the conversation. I totally also understand the fact that budgets exist. Yeah. And if gaming is something you do as an activity, then yeah, for sure. Squeeze it into a budget, make it happen. But when it comes to hobbies are something where there's a budget. There should be a budget. It's irresponsible if you don't have a budget, which I have been participating irresponsibly in my hobby for a long time. Made it a career, haven't done it perfect. I'm not perfect. Certainly not perfect. I have no business school experience. I have to figure out the business rules. The United States has really weird business laws. I'm doing it all for the first time, right? Trying to understand what's a tax write-off, how to properly balance all that stuff, being able to provide for my family, making sure that because I decide to follow all the rules of the tax law or tax code, that at the end of my year, I can either give the government a lame amount of money or purchase another console to review. Which one do I want to do? That's kind of what I'm looking at in some of this stuff, and it hasn't always worked out best for me, but I'm not perfect in that. And so what I'm trying to get at in all that is that I, one, have this as a job. Two, it's a hobby. And what I'm realizing as a hobbyist is I will spend more money on devices. I will spend more time on devices. I will spend more brain and mental energy on devices because I am interested in the nuances of the subject matter past the activity that I am participating in, right? The difference between that I'm realizing between the way that I am approaching this versus how I used to approach it was I used to approach gaming. Well, no, actually, I kind of always treated it as a hobby. I've always had, to the best of my ability, multiple devices to try things. Well, at one point it was Nintendo and PlayStation, but gaming as a whole, someone who participates this as a hobby, I put a lot of effort, energy, and mental space into it. I don't know if you do this too, and I don't know if you agree with this at all, but I'm kind of thinking out loud here as someone who is trying to rationalize this as a father. How much of this time, how much of this should I be allocating? What's an appropriate percentage of a salary to allocate towards hobby? Is it a dollar amount or is it a percentage? I don't know the answer. I'm not suggesting that there is one that is there certainly isn't a one size fits all. When it comes to gaming as a whole, I think it's a really, really wild subject because it is so many things to so many people. To some people, it is just how they blow off steam after a really hard work day. That is something that they, look at as important. That could be an activity or a hobby. To others, it's something where they want to try the weird indie games and they want to experience the different types of hardware. They want to emulate on singular devices. They want to try retro hardware. They want to get the new, latest and greatest PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo stuff to try out what they're doing in the industry because they're excited about it. Those are people who I would have before been like, oh, that's an enthusiast. I look at, no, it's a hobbyist. I think with gaming, because it's an activity that is participated in, it's really tough to differentiate the idea of gaming as a hobby versus gaming as an activity. And to the outside world, it is only a hobby. You can't just play Call of Duty after a long day of work and just be like, yeah, it's just something I do. Because to others, they'd be like, it's a hobby. It's your hobby. Gaming's your hobby. And it's like, no, dude, I buy the newest Xbox whenever it comes out, and I buy the newest Call of Duty because I just play Call of Duty with my pals twice a week on Thursdays and Saturdays. It's just how I keep up with my high school buddies, I know someone who does that, so I'm using that example. It's a really interesting thing, and I think what I am realizing is the internet makes everybody into goblins, and they just don't like to hear that there's another side to things. When I demonized PC gaming back 2 years ago and said console gaming is just the most practical way, I knew nothing about PC gaming, right? I'm like, oh yeah, dude, for the casual, this is perfect, right? This is super, super great. I would argue that PC gaming is perfect for the casual now. Let me give you my arguments. You already own one, right? Now, there are people, of course, that use Mac. This is not for everybody. But for people who own Windows machines, you already own the device. You can play games on it, right? As simple as that. Mac is getting more into it. It's pretty crazy, actually, the leaps that Apple has been doing, right? You already own it. You don't need to go out and buy it, right? And here's another thing. You can purchase a game that doesn't work on your low-end PC and then get a nicer one down the road and the game still works. You can't do that for your PlayStation if you decide to go Xbox, or Xbox if you decide to go PlayStation, which maybe is the reason why people on Xbox are so upset about it. Sure, because you're like, I got all these games on Xbox, but Xbox isn't giving me anything, and why would I do that when I want to play PlayStation games? I can just have them all over. I get it. I totally understand. I think that we are learning what ecosystems are now, Apple being one of the biggest proponents of this type of trap, the golden handcuffs, the walled garden, however you want to say it. Ecosystems really rule the roost here when it comes to services and all these different things and hardware. That is really the most damaging thing that we're seeing in this is the ecosystem war. Which ecosystem will you be trapped in? And I think that as a gamer as someone who plays video games, I want to be trapped by the least amount of ecosystems, 1. And I want to have the most flexibility, 2. And lastly, when it comes to playing video games, gaming is a hobby. PC building is not a hobby, right? this is something that is good to differentiate and show that there's lines here. I don't care about the parts in my PC when it comes to specifics. I don't care what kind of fans they are. I don't care what kind of CPU's in there. I don't care what kind of GPU's in there. All I want is to play games on a 4K setup very well. That's it. That's it. I don't care to build it. Maybe someday it'd be fun to do. I don't care. I don't care about the cable management inside. I don't care about the color of the lights that are shining. Lame. RGB is so lame. I don't care about any of that stuff. I am not a PC builder. There's a difference. PC gaming isn't the hobby. Gaming's the hobby. PC grants me access to the most games possible. And I would argue that if we're talking simply in terms of practicality and delivery methods alone, the confines that exist within the console gaming space would then show that someone is more of a hobbyist if they're willing to spend money on specific hardware that is made for single-use activities. Sure, it can stream stuff, but we all know at this point that TVs can stream everything for you. So really, all an Xbox and all a PlayStation is a gaming machine. So it could be argued that the enthusiast and the hardcore gamer are actually console gamers. But I'm not going to argue that because it's stupid. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Play games, for goodness sakes. Stop yelling at each other about, oh, you shouldn't play on this. Oh, you don't get it. You have an expensive PC. I don't. So obviously you're a hardcore gamer. Who cares? Play the games you want to play. Spend as much money as you can. Not as you want to, as you can, as you should. It was just responsible. Get the right gear and have fun. That's really what it's all about. Gaming should be fun. At one point, it was fun. And I can tell you that for the first time since the Nintendo Switch, I am having the most fun playing video games that I've ever had. And it is indeed because I am using a PC. On that note, I will also say this. The next person out there could say the exact same thing and could say PlayStation 4. It really just comes down to how you find yourself wanting to play video games. The one suggestion I would make is, as we are seeing the industry is blurring the lines on where the games are going to show up, how they look, it's all seeming relatively similar to a certain extent. I would suggest investing a little bit of brain power in deciding where do you want your games to live. That is indeed the most important decision you can make. I don't think that the consoles themselves really matter. I don't think that PC versus console matters. I believe your application to games, your application in gaming, right? However you're going to apply gaming in your life is one thing, but where do you want those games to live? Are you cool with them all being on PlayStation? Are you cool with them always being on Xbox and Microsoft, right? There's a little bit of a advantage with Xbox because you can always just bring them over to your PC eventually. That's kind of advantageous. Are you someone who only cares about Mario, Link, all that stuff and wants to play on a handheld form factor with Nintendo, right? Because the only reason why you would get a Nintendo Switch at this point before the second one comes out is because you like Nintendo games. Because all the third-party titles can be played on like a Steam Deck. Better, at least right now. And this is coming from someone who loves Nintendo products and the Nintendo Switch, right? So decide that. I think that'd be helpful. Let me know how you feel about this whole setup, because it sure was complicated, and it means that I didn't get to work out when I wanted to make a video for you guys. Please vote on the category. If you want to know what that is, I'm simply trying to get my own category on Twitch called Coffee and Tea. I want to build out coffee culture online there because I stream Monday through Thursday, 5 a.m. Pacific time. It's great. We drink coffee. We talk about stuff. We play video games, more mellow video games. I was playing some of the more aggressive ones, and I think that might not be the best vibe, right? Even though we listen to hardcore music, maybe running through self-sacrificial, blood and gore Path of Exile may not be the most vivacious. But who knows? Kind of get after it however we can. Come hang out with us in the mornings. But we're voting. Hit the link. It'll show you. All you got to do is log into your Twitch account. If you don't have a Twitch account and you want some instructions, all you got to do is make a Twitch account, click vote, and what you're saying is, I vote this. I vote that this thing is something you guys should do. That's it. That's it. That's it. Okay. Cool. I really liked this cup. I really did. It was delicious. This was a good cup. AeroPress is great. Y'all should own an AeroPress. And I'll make an I will make an AeroPress class if enough people like this video. So, at the end of this video, if we have 250 likes, I'll make an AeroPress class. Cheers to you. Have a good one. Happy gaming. Play more. And most of all, for goodness sakes, before you put your fingers on a keyboard, and before you do anything, really, be kind. I'm asking for it. See ya.